Hi, guys. So, over the course of the centuries, Christ's teaching has experienced many changes at the expense of its vitality. And in the very beginning, the roots of Christian teaching was sound and strong. But soon after the Redeemer's departure, these roots were damaged and began to suffer. The decay of the church today is proof of the fallacious way in which it was once built up. Through power and violence. After all, that which is the truth and will of God will not perish. As long as it is willed by the Lord our God, our Creator, it will not perish. Today's freedom of thinking allows Christians to return to the origin or source from which the truth flows lucidly. Some may ask themselves, is it really necessary that we need to learn in this manner about life after death? For us, it should be a matter of course that we return to the realm of God after our earthly death. This is what some say. However, without much conviction or without giving the subject any further thought, as far as eternity is concerned, everybody has a different opinion. And to mention occasionally the word God is something Christians in particular do not wish to do. They speak of destiny, some the universe, rather than give the impression to their fellow human beings of being excessively pious. In doing so, they don't even use the proper word. What's more, they even talk about the energy instead of God. An energy which is all round, which probably might be God. It really is a sorry state to see the way in which Christians are oriented. And why is it so? Why aren't they taught the real truth about the spiritual world? Why do they not concern themselves with what takes place after death? How often do you hear from fellow human beings, I don't wish to hear from anything about what comes after death? I'm not interested. If there is something, I'll find out soon enough. And others have no idea. They don't know what will happen. They themselves feel unsure. They don't know what to think. And this is really sad because at regular intervals, the Christian message is proclaimed by the church, forming the foundation on which Christian teaching should be built. There is the message of Christmas, of the birth of the Redeemer, describing the celestial songs of the angels which was heard by the shepherds in the fields. I don't need to give you any further details of the life conduct of Christ until his death, but would like to draw your attention to the fact that there is also Easter, a message of Christ's suffering. This is proclaimed by Christianity. In addition, there is also the Ascension as well, the Pentecost. These holidays really are the basic principles of the Christian religion. In religious life, this truly ought to be disseminated in an active fashion. It should be broadcast among Christians in a spirited manner. There is true lack of this vitality, for you yourselves are struggling and complain about the disintegration of the Christian church. Can there be a collapse of something which is willed by God? Or is it perhaps the case that something has to collapse because it isn't willed by God? You can be sure if it is willed by God, it can never collapse. If you see it collapse, it is not willed by God. Something in this situation, in the message proclaimed by the church, cannot be correct. We can only marvel at human beings when it's a matter of science. They try to fathom everything and analyze minutely every detail in their search for truth. Let me lead you back to those days when Christ proclaimed this teaching. And if I may point out to you what has become of this Christian teaching, as well as the differences in the preaching practices between those earlier days when the source flowed out of its purity and today, you will then understand that a collapse has to come about. But why has inquiry and research into this truth been neglected for so long? I can give you the answer more or less. In the beginning, the roots of Christian teaching were strong and healthy, but it wasn't long after the Redeemer had returned to heaven that the roots of Christian teaching were damaged and became sick. It is no longer identical with what Christ had given. When he preached and proclaimed the word of God, he also healed the sick. The things we are seeing today is quite contrary to the teachings of Jesus Christ. It was no longer identical. It still is no longer identical with what Christ had given. When he preached and proclaimed the word of God, he also healed the sick. There were so many unbelievers among those who came to listen to what he had to say. So many unbelievers. First and foremost, there was terrible illnesses in those days. It was the sick unbelievers who wanted to become healthy. Contrary to today, people just had to endure pain as they neither had the means to elevate it or, neither did they have the doctors. One simply was sick and endured the pain rather sadly and died rather early. There was no choice. You can well imagine how a person feels who knows that there isn't anyone to help him and that he has to die, even if he doesn't wish to die at all. Although he doesn't understand the proclaimed teaching, he does have confidence and hope. His only wish is to become healthy. Thus, they went to the miracle worker, as they called him. We call him Jesus Christ. Of course, he knew these people and perceived their thinking. So he asked, "Do you believe in me?" And they each replied, "Yes, I believe." Well, they wanted to be healed and believed in it, for they knew that he had already healed many others. Thus, he could say, "Your belief has helped you." The apostles who proclaimed the Christian teaching originally did so with much vitality. These people could firmly believe, were imbued with their faith, and ready to follow even the severest path. For in those days, the Christians were persecuted. And as you know, they were used as living torches, full of courage. They walked to their death singing despite the pain. I believe, and I remember even Peter once said that if you kill me, you need to put me upside down. I do not deserve to die in the way that my Creator died. Such confidence, such courage, the vivid faith that was belief. And later on, power came into this faith. Christ never acted with power or violence. Never.